All right, what is going on, guys? So in this video, I just want to solve nutrition for fat loss once and for all, right? I'm going to share exactly how myself, my clients, how we actually get down to our lowest body fat percentage and enjoy the process, because nutrition is something that I struggled with for so many years. A lot of people are also struggling with it, and it's tough because no one teaches you how to properly eat, right? It's not something that's taught in school, and even you go online and everyone has all this conflicting information. One professional might give you a completely different approach than another professional, and it's hard to understand what actually should we be eating to hit our fitness goals. And a lot of people do agree that the calories matter, the macros matter, but at a certain point, all right, what food should we actually be eating to hit those calories and macros, right? And that's where a lot of people disagree. And what I figured out is you want to have an approach to eating that just makes hitting your calories and macros not feel like you're dieting, right? You want to actually prioritize foods you enjoy. And then you also just want to have more of a strategy on how you're actually going to budget your calories so that you can actually fit in, going out to dinner or having a couple of drinks and not have to stress about going way over your calories, right? That's something that really I struggled with for a long time. It was the idea that, hey, if I'm going to get results, I have to just be 100% locked in, staying on weekends, track every macro. And in reality, that's just not the way you want to do things, right? Because you want to really actually enjoy the process. So with that being said, let's get into it. So the first thing is actually understanding the order of importance, right? When it comes to nutrition and fat loss and body composition, what actually matters the most? And the first thing is calories, because calories actually dictate if you're going to lose weight or not, right? You need to be in that calorie deficit or else you're not going to lose fat. And if you're in a calorie surplus, you're going to gain weight. So that's the first thing. Second is your macros, because you could have the perfect calories, but if you're not eating enough protein, you're not eating enough fat, maybe you're eating too much carbs, too little carbs, you're not going to get the results that you want. You're not going to feel the way that you want to feel. So macros are definitely important for sure. And then the third, and this is super underrated, are the micronutrients. And this is the actual vitamins and the minerals in the food you're eating, right? You could have perfect macros, but if you're eating a lot of foods that are just devoid of micronutrients, then you might have a good body composition, but you're not going to have good health. You're not going to have good hormones. So just to dive into each of them very briefly, starting with the calories. So calories are a unit of energy for measuring the amount of energy in our food. And as I mentioned, energy balance dictates if we actually lose or gain weight. So, there's a calorie surplus, which means you gain weight, calorie deficit, you lose weight. And if you eat the same amount of calories as you burn your calorie maintenance, then there's no reason for your body to lose or gain weight. Next is the macronutrients. And obviously there's three main ones. You got your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrates. Protein is mainly just used for muscle growth, retaining muscle when you're losing fat, recovery. Now, dietary fat is more for your hormones and your overall health. And what you need to realize is your hunger and how full you are actually hormones. It's your leptin and your ghrelin. So you want to be making sure you're getting enough dietary fat, because if you're trying to lose body fat and you're not eating enough dietary fat, then your hormones just aren't going to be as optimal, and you're going to probably be more hungry and not as full on your calories than if you did have good hormones, because you're actually getting in sufficient fat. So you do not want to neglect fat. And also another thing too, for guys, testosterone is literally built from cholesterol, which is a type of fat. So limiting your fat is essentially limiting the ability of your body to produce testosterone. And dietary fat does have 9 calories per gram. It is more calorie dense, but that doesn't mean you want to cut it out completely, right? You want to make sure you're getting in enough. And then carbohydrates are essentially your body's primary energy source. And you have simple, you have complex. We're going to get into this in more detail, but you really want to understand, the importance of carbs and also the importance of when you should actually be eating carbs, because your carb timing can actually play a big factor in how much energy you have during your workouts, especially when you're losing fat. So now we get to the micronutrients, right? And just to kind of keep this very simple, your vitamins, it's, your A, B, C, D, E, K, all of them have a specific function, and you need all of them to have good health, right? Same with the minerals. If you ever took chemistry, you've probably seen one of those periodic tables. Well, a lot of those minerals are also in food, and some of them are actually very essential for your body, especially magnesium and zinc. Those tend to be ones that are neglected, or people have deficiencies in them. Also, sodium, potassium, calcium, right? So it's important to really make sure you're getting in enough micronutrients. So now you kind of have that background, I just want to get into the actual method of all right, calories, macros, micronutrients. How should I use that knowledge to actually have an eating approach that will make sure I'm healthy, but also getting good results with your body composition goals, especially your fat loss? So really what you want to think about is, first of all, the calories and the macros are king, right? The calories and macros will dictate your body composition change. Calories will dictate if you lose weight or gain weight. Macros, how much protein you have can determine, are you actually going to retain muscle when you're losing weight, right? Also, the ability to build muscle when you're lean bulking or in a surplus. Definitely want to focus on the calories and macros first. And the second thing is, let's say you have your calories and macros in place. What food should you actually be eating, right? Should you be 100% clean foods only? What is the approach we want to take? And I have tried being 100% clean foods. I've tried it. I failed every single time, right? Because it's not sustainable for a lot of people. You know, if you have really good discipline, then 100%, you could definitely make that work. But for me, you want to have an approach that you actually look forward to and you can see yourself doing all the time, right? That's why I don't like diets. Diets are temporary changes that eventually you're going to get off the diet. And when you get off the diet, you're going to go back in progress. So diets are not the answer. It's building good habits that you enjoy doing. So what I like to do is the 80-20 rule. And really what this means is if you can get 80% of your calories from micronutrient dense whole foods, then you have permission to fit 20% of the calories from the foods you crave, right? If you're getting 80% of your calories from foods that are giving you micronutrients, also helping you hit your macros, then it is fine to fit 20% of your calories from foods that you probably are craving, especially when you're trying to lose fat, right? You know, everyone kind of has those foods that you just do not want to give it up. You know, it's probably not the healthiest thing, but it's something you really enjoy. And I think if you're able to give yourself permission to have those foods in moderation on your nutrition plan, then you're going to be able to stick to your plan a lot longer than if you did not do that. So just for example, right, if you have 2,500 calories as your daily target, then what I personally would do is eat 2,000 calories of nutrient dense whole foods, micronutrient dense foods, right? But you can give yourself 500 calories to fit in a dessert or, you know, something that you're craving that maybe isn't the healthiest option, right? That's really the way to do it. That's personally what I do. I like to give myself, you know, 400, 500 calories of, you know, whatever I'm craving that day. So it's all about sustainability. Obviously, you do want to make sure you're getting your micronutrients in. You want to be smart about it, but you do not have to be 100% cold turkey because that is just not going to work long term. So now you kind of know a little bit more about what you should be focusing on. 80% of your calories still needs to be good quality foods, right? And for a while, I was having a lot of packaged processed foods as long as it fit my macros. And a lot of people do the same thing. But as you can see on the screen, there are two different types of foods here. And you essentially could have the same amount of calories and protein out of these foods, right? You know, you could have a protein bar and get 200 calories and 20 grams of protein, or you could have ground beef, also get 200 calories, 20 grams of protein. However, you want to make sure you're making the best decision possible. If you were to have the protein bar or the protein shake, sure, you might have the macros, but you're not getting in your micronutrients. And you're also getting in a bunch of unnecessary ingredients, such as seed oils, preservatives, right, and xanthan gums, things that are probably not good for your stomach. They are known to cause inflammation. Where if you have the red meat or the eggs, not only are you not taking in those ingredients, but you're also getting the benefits of all the micronutrients, right? You're getting all the essential amino acids. You're getting zinc, iron, B12, magnesium. You know, the egg yolk, you can see it's probably one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. So it's really just understanding like, all right, like calories of protein is great, but how can we get the best bang for your buck out of those calories of protein, right? So this is just something you want to keep in mind. I'm not knocking the protein bar and the protein shake. I will still have them from time to time, but it's being intentional about what actually is in the foods you're eating, and are you even getting micronutrients out of those foods? And the same thing applies to some carbohydrate examples. And again, like I'm not knocking Rice Krispie treats and rice cakes. I will still have them from time to time, but it's the same thing, right? You have, 200, 300 calories of mostly carbs, especially before a workout. And if you would have the food on the left, sure, you probably would get energy, but you're taking in, again, just a bunch of ingredients you don't need, and you're missing out on the micronutrients, right? If you were to have the same amount of calories and carbs from watermelon or dates or any fruit or honey or things like that, you'll still get the energy, but you're also just getting in all those extra micronutrients, right? You're getting vitamin C, potassium, L-citrulline in watermelon actually boosts blood flow. So it's great before a workout, right? Same with the dates. You're getting a lot of extra nutrients in there. So when it comes down to what is the best bang for your buck option, I would probably go with the watermelon or the dates over the Krispy treats and the rice cakes, right? Now that you understand that, I also want to get into a couple examples of some 80% foods. I'm just starting with the protein, right? This is personally what I like to focus on. Red meat is one of the best protein sources, especially if you get a grass-fed red meat, because it's complete in amino acids and you have a lot of micronutrients in there. Same with eggs, as I mentioned, especially with the yolk, you get a lot of extra nutrients. Fish, seafood is great. Oysters is amazing. You get a lot of zinc out of there. Chicken and turkey are good. They're not, in terms of the nutrients, they're not as good as the red meat and the eggs, but they're still a pretty good option. Dairy products can be good too, like milk, cheese, yogurt. Ideally, you want to get a grass-fed or even a raw dairy option, just because They are typically easier to digest. Some people have problems with a lot of pasteurized or processed dairy options, but very high in protein, some healthy fats, some good micronutrients. And then also protein powder. Again, you want to get a good quality one, ideally. Don't want one with a bunch of seed oils and preservatives and ingredients that you probably don't need. You're better off just getting a very straightforward one with just a couple ingredients. I like just a good, grass-fed whey or collagen protein. For carbohydrates, potato and sweet potato are one of the best. They have a lot of good nutrition in there. Rice can be a good option. It's very easy digestible. Tortillas, not the most nutrient dense, but I personally like having them just because they add a lot of variety to your diet. You can make tacos, quesadillas, things like that. Obviously, vegetables are great, especially, spinach, carrots, I really like having. And then for simple carbs, any fruit or a fruit juice is really good for you. With the fruit juice, you want to avoid options with a lot of added things, added sugars, right? If you can get one with just one ingredient, like orange juice, and that's the only ingredient in it, then it's good for you. So raw honey is great. I have a lot of raw honey, very good for you. And even a maple syrup, right? If you get an organic one that doesn't have 30 ingredients, it has literally just one ingredient, maple syrup. That's a good way to sweeten things. You can put it in yogurt and things like that. But these are some carb examples that I personally like. And then lastly, the dietary fat. And there's a lot of stuff on the screen. You can feel free to read it if you'd like. But really the main point is that there's three types of dietary fat. You have your saturated fat, your unsaturated fat, and your trans fat. A lot of people have negative things to say about saturated fat, but saturated fat is actually really good for you. It's good for your hormones, right? This is a lot of, things in animal products such as meat, right? Dairy, the fat in dairy, or even some cooking oils like coconut oil or even butter, right? These are fat sources that are solid at room temperature, right? Coconut oil, it's solid until you heat it up. Same with butter, same with animal fat. And these are good because they increase the HDL cholesterol. So especially for guys, this is good for your testosterone. Second fat option is unsaturated fat. And there's two types of unsaturated fat. You have your monounsaturated and your polyunsaturated. Monounsaturated fats are actually very good for you. These are things like olive oil, avocados, nuts, right? And these actually help reduce the LDL cholesterol. Now, the one type of unsaturated fat that you want to stay away from is polyunsaturated fat, which are essentially the seed oils, your vegetable oil, your soybean oil, sunflower, canola. And the problem with these is they're very highly processed, right? The way they're made, you can look it up on YouTube, is very unnatural. And it's honestly pretty disgusting seeing how these oils are made. And a lot of them are just linked to causing inflammation. You could even do an experiment. If you go seed oil free for 2 weeks and then you add seed oils back to your diet, you're just going to feel the inflammation. You're probably going to get a stomach ache, right? Or your face might get puffy. I don't feel great when I have seed oils. So that's something you want to be aware of. And the last thing is trans fat. I think everyone can agree trans fats are just not good for you, right? These fats are in a lot of, fried food or heavily processed baked goods, right? So definitely avoid trans fat. So now you have a better understanding of what foods to focus on. I wanted to give you some 20% food examples, right? We talked about the 80% food. What about the 20% foods? Because sure, I recommend fitting in foods you like, but you still don't want to have a lot of foods that are bad for your body, right? You want to avoid the seed oils. You want to avoid bad ingredients, right? If you can have the foods you like, but get it from healthier options, then that is the best way to do it. So a couple options here that I personally have myself and that I recommend to my clients. If you're going to get a cookie, you want to get a good brand. The Tate's brand is great. It's probably the most accessible one because you see it in a lot of stores. The Siete cookies, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Siete are great. They're grain-free, very clean ingredients. Those are probably my two favorite ones if I had to pick. They're in a lot of grocery stores, right? Stop and Shop, things like that. Another option is organic chocolate. And I personally like the Who chocolate, the HU, very just good quality chocolate. The Taza is a good brand, Green and Blacks. All of these brands are just very clean ingredient, organic chocolate. And it actually has a lot of good healthy fat as well. And then if you're going to have ice cream, the Magnum ice cream bars have pretty clean ingredients. I like them because once you have a bar, the package is empty, right? The wrapper is empty, so you can't screw up and binge eat them, right? Haagen-Dazs is one of the cleanest ingredient ice cream. I recommend if you're going for just the best ingredient, go with the Haagen-Dazs. The third option is there are brands such as Nix or Halo Top that don't have the best ingredients, but they have some ridiculous macros, right? You could eat a whole pint of Nix ice cream for like 350 calories and get at least 20 grams of protein out of it. So from time to time, I will get a pint of Nix, a pint of Halo Top, and it's great because you can literally crush a whole pint of ice cream guilt-free. So definitely look out for these brands. And a couple more options here. If you like chips, the same brand, Siete, has some great options. Pretty much everything they have is just amazing. They have tortilla chips, they have potato chips, a lot of different flavors. Another good brand is Popcorners. They are very high volume, low calorie, don't have a lot of ingredients in it. And these are more accessible, I find, in a lot of stores. And then lastly, you have your protein bars. And protein bars can be a good way to get in some protein on the go. However, a lot of brands just are not very ideal. They're either not properly dosed, they have too much artificial sweeteners, seed oils, things like that. But these are some options that I personally recommend. So my favorite is Atlas bars. It's just the best bar in terms of the macros. It's 200 calories, 20 grams of protein, but also the ingredients. They use coconut oil. They use grass-fed whey protein, right? One of the best options that still tastes pretty good. So I'm going to have to give number one to Atlas. Lara bar is good. It's just literally they only have, 3, 4, 5 ingredients, all whole foods. The only problem is they're not that high in protein. So I wouldn't necessarily call them a protein bar. It's more just a nutrition bar that's actually good for you. Same with the RX bar, right? Kind of the same thing, has some protein, maybe 10 grams, give or take. It's literally all whole foods. So I do recommend those bars. But if you're going for a higher protein option, Atlas is number one. Quest is also a good one too. Some of the flavors are not as good as others in terms of the ingredients, right? If you get the chocolate chip cookie dough, there is no seed oils in that flavor. Some of the flavors do have them. So I personally like to look out for the chocolate chip cookie dough one. And then the last one is the Kate's Real Food bar. Is again, very clean ingredient, tastes very good. It has a lot more carbs in it. It's good, maybe before a workout, or I used to have one when I would go skiing, right? It just gives some good energy, very clean energy. So that's another one as well. So that is pretty much it as far as the nutrition, right? What you want to focus on, the 80-20 rule. But the last component is the drinking, right? I get asked a lot, all right, how can I still go out and have some drinks on a Friday or Saturday and not let that set back your whole entire week? Because you can do some damage with drinking. And it's not even the drinking itself. Oftentimes, it's the food choices you make after, right? If you're not planning ahead, you're having high calorie options, and then you're eating a ton of calories after, you can really offset a lot of your calorie deficit. Or maybe you're eating at maintenance, you can put yourself in a surplus. So here we have the dialed dog nutrition method. And I think the name is pretty funny, but essentially the key is just planning ahead, right? You want to know exactly how many calories that you want to hit that day, and you want to budget your calories out, right? Let's say you have 2,500 calories, and by the end of the day, that is the amount of calories that you want to hit, but you want to go out and have some drinks. What you want to do is you want to follow these 5 steps. So the first step is intermittent fasting. And for those of you who don't know what this means, essentially it just means pushing your first meal a couple hours into the day. And the reason I like doing this is because if you are trying to budget your calories, you want to fit most of those calories in later in the day when you are the most hungry, right? So if you intermittent fast, you can have some coffee or tea to suppress your appetite. If you're drinking water, you can have electrolytes. There's a lot of different ways to push off your hunger, but that just makes the day way more enjoyable because you can push those calories later into the day when you are the most hungry, and you can have a bigger lunch and dinner, save calories for your drinks, right? So that's one of the first things I recommend. If you're not going to intermittent fast, you ideally want to just have a lower calorie breakfast. And the second thing is you want to have a high protein lunch and dinner, right? Ideally, you do not want to spend too many calories on these meals. You want to eat enough where you feel satiated and full, but you want to really focus on just getting in your protein with those meals, right? Satiating foods. And the goal here is you want to save calories for nighttime. Third is you want to get a workout in, or at least get your steps in, right? I personally like to get 10K plus steps just because it does not impact your hunger. It does not impact your recovery in the gym, and it gives you a lot of calories to work with later in the day. So fourth is when you do go out, you want to stick to the low calorie options. I personally recommend tequila soda or vodka soda because it's under 100 calories, no sugar, right? You could have light beer, or you could also have some of the seltzer drinks that are 100 calories, right? Or like a High Noon or a Sun Cruiser. Because really what you want to do is you want to find drinks that you can kind of ballpark at 100 calories so that, let's say you had 4 drinks, you could equate that to 400 calories, right? If you can keep each drink to either at or under 100 calories, then it makes it a lot easier to keep your calories lower, but also keep track of the amount of calories you're having. So that's number 4. Number 5 is after you're done, after you get back, the first thing you want to do is you want to hydrate, right? You want to drink some water. Second thing is you want to have some sort of a snack prepared if you're going to eat something, right? The problem is a lot of people come back and they don't drink water, so that they feel really hungry and they make poor food decisions. And it's easy to eat hundreds of calories, even thousands, after a night out. So what you want to do is you want to think ahead and be like, all right, when I get back, how many calories will I have left? And what can I have that still allows me to hit my calories and not go over your number? So a couple options here You can have some Greek yogurt, put some honey in it. That's what I have a lot of times. I used to have, oatmeal is another good option. It's easy to make. If you want to prepare yourself a meal, another option is you can just make a bigger dinner and save some of the leftovers for later. I will do that sometimes, something with ground beef or chicken or tacos or things like that. But really what you want to do is plan ahead to figure out, hey, if I'm going to eat something after I go out, how many calories will I have to spend and what can I have so that I kill the craving and don't have a desire to order fast food at 1 a.m., right? So that's really the focus you want to have. Just to recap, save your calories for later. Intermittent fasting can definitely help. You want to have a high protein lunch and dinner. Be smart with your calories. Get your steps in, get your calories burned, and then stick to low calorie drinks. Plan ahead. Don't blow all your calories at 1 o'clock in the morning, right? So that is it for this video. Hopefully you found that helpful. And if any of you need some help with your fitness goals, maybe you're just at a plateau, you're having a hard time losing fat, maybe you're having a hard time progressing in the gym, or maybe you're just putting in all the work and just not seeing the results that you want. Essentially, me and my team work with busy people like yourself to help you dial in on the training, the nutrition, and the accountability so you can actually achieve your best physique and enjoy the process. So if that is something you're interested in, click the link below. And for the rest of you, I will see you in the next one.